welcome our new insect overlords. And I welcome them the same way Russian state television did, by showing naked pictures of Melania.
Melania Trump, муж, наконец, победил, готовится во второй раз стать хозяйкой Белого дома. А вот так Мелания выглядела в 2000 году.
If you don't speak Russian, that's Russian for, do you have any nude photos of your wife? Would you like some? Thanks to Julia Davis, the invaluable Russian media monitor of the Daily Beast. I think that underscores something. I think that underscores that Putin is running President Halfwit and choosing his cabinet for him. That same Russian state TV channel reported neither Mike Pompeo nor Nikki Haley would be in that cabinet long before Tucker Carlson did and long before Trump himself announced it. But moreover, I think the photos are the final reminder to Trump that Trump no longer has any claim on Putin, nor influence on Putin, nor should he expect anything from Putin except demands and instructions. 2 months and 9 days before he again seizes power, Trump is a lame duck. And while he and his supporters here will certainly try to get him an unconstitutional third term, A, it will be quite a feat, even for fascists and a corrupt judiciary, and B, Putin, who did not call to congratulate Trump but waited until Trump called him yesterday or Saturday, is obviously expecting that by the end of 2028, Trump will be dead by then. Thank you, Nancy Faust. I would assume if Putin hasn't already selected Trump's successor, maybe the name rhymes with Squeal on Tusk. Maybe it rhymes with J.V. Prance. Maybe it rhymes with Tucker Carlson. Whatever it is, he's working on it now. If it's Trump's job to now end birthright citizenship, that could work both ways, couldn't it? If he finds a way to say, you're not an American just because you're born here, your parents were born here, surely he can find a way to say you are an American even if you weren't born here, Elon. Whoever Putin's choice is, his wife does not have nude photographs that can be run by Russian state television as part of its news coverage of their election. Talk about rubbing your face in it. It even appears Russia and the Republicans have largely backed away from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and dashed his hopes of becoming anything in the Trump Reich more important than Secretary of Masturbation. Sideshow Bobby thought it was his time to shine now, from dead bear cubs to whale heads to brainworms. The day after the election, he even laid out his vision, and remember, his vision does not necessarily include anything that can actually be seen, because it does not necessarily include anything that's really happened. President Trump has asked me to do 3 things. Clean up the corruption in our government health agencies, return those agencies to their rich tradition of gold standard, evidence-based science, make America healthy again by ending the chronic disease epidemic. This is being said by a man who looks 206 years old. The problem? It also looks like he didn't clear that post or the MSNBC interview clip that it plays with Trump or with Russia. As Kennedy went even further and threatened to eliminate all vaccines, the Trumpists finally realized that, like Musk, Kennedy is not there to help the old man, but to supplant him. Inside Trump's camp, CNN now reports, questions have been raised about whether Kennedy could get confirmed or obtain a security clearance necessary for a cabinet-level position. And even if he could, they doubt Kennedy would want to go through those processes. Quote, if you dump a bear in Central Park and think you're above the law, you don't want to have to go through that gauntlet of political correctness, said a former Trump official briefed on the discussions. Trump obviously wants the fewer connections to Central Park as can be arranged. On the other hand, if Bob has to go back to his world of FaceTime, at least he can focus on getting the nation to come together. election was not stolen. Not in the way you're thinking, anyway. We Democrats and liberals just never did fully understand how much and to how many people the phrase "the economy" only meant supermarket prices and household budgets. And by the way, unlike everybody else telling you what went wrong, I did not know this a week ago, or, I would have mentioned it. Also, the Democratic Party is not dead. That was not a landslide, and it was not a disaster. As Bill Scherer, the politics editor of the Washington Monthly, noted, Democrats after losing by 2 points. Our brand is in ashes. We need a complete overhaul. Republicans after losing by 4.5 points. Let's run the same guy again. For the sake of exactitude, it is looking like that final loss number may come in at around 1.5 points, which would make Trump's the 50th biggest, or if you prefer, 5th smallest popular vote margin of all time. But you get the idea. So burn it down? No. Retire a lot of people? Yeah, maybe. Not necessarily. Looking at you, Chuck Schumer. Because there is actually something bigger to face than a complete overhaul, or what if it was stolen? Bigger, but happily, at least in one sense, more fixable. And let me state this again. The election was not stolen. The numbers do add up. There aren't discrepancies. Kamala Harris got more votes than Jackie Rosen did in Nevada, and Rosen got elected and Kamala didn't. Yes, the Russians did make bomb threats to key polling places in the swing states. Yes, the Biden administration is going to do nothing about it, even though they should just turn off the electricity grid in Russia. They're going to do nothing about it, just as the Obama administration did nothing about that in 2016. Yes, Merrick Garland should be fired live on pay-per-view, and they should reenact the humiliation scene after the court-martial of the Chuck Connors character in the ancient TV series Branded. Only instead of the commander breaking the guy's sword over his knee, he should break Garland's glasses. But as somebody who still to this day wants to know why they really locked down the vote count in Warren County, Ohio on election night 2004 on a laughable claim that Al-Qaeda was planning to attack Warren County, Ohio, the election was not stolen. Not in the way you're thinking. It was stolen in the sense that the fascists and the anti-democracy billionaires have been running a series of illicit, hidden, disguised, pro-Republican advertisements 24/7, 365 for at least 30 years. They have been bombarding the underachievers of this nation, the incels, the morons, the idiots, the bros, and now the social media addicts of America with a series of easy-to-digest, sweet-tasting conspiracy theories that you cannot trust the government, that you cannot believe the news media, that you cannot think the Democrats can keep you safe, that the economy is disastrous, that they are eating the cats and they are eating the dogs, that whatever these people might be afraid of or angry at the moment, that is the fault of the Democratic villain of the moment. Bill Clinton, the Dixie Chicks, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, me, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. And this commercial has been poisoning and addicting the gullible 24/7, 365 via the latest technology, dating back to when the latest technology was satellite radio and cable, to today when it's streaming and gaming and sports talk shows that aren't actually about sports. Every day this is fed to them by literally dozens, probably hundreds of 24/7 spigots that look like television news operations or sound like talk shows or podcasts or Twitch game commentary. There's right-wing Fox News and further-right Newsmax and sneaky further-right Sinclair and crazy Lindell Pillow TV and dark subhuman Charlie Kirk TV and Steve Bannon TV and Nick Fuentes TV. And if you are most susceptible to a bunch of tech bros talking about it, they are there to sell it to you And if no, you need to hear it from a black man, there's Larry Elder. And if no, you need to hear it from a black woman, there's Candace Owens. And no, if you need to hear it from a sitting senator, there's Ted Cruz. And if none of that is enough, there is a CPAC convention or a conservative women's conference or an American Greatness Leadership Summit every other weekend. And finally, if no, that's still not enough, you need to be totally drowning in it. If you need this to be injected directly into your veins, if 24/7, 365 just isn't enough, Elon Musk bought Twitter, and now we know why. Meanwhile, the Democrats have MSNBC. You're welcome. MSNBC, except in the mornings, where the anti-Trump guy used to be the most virulently pro-Trump guy. And except for middays, where it's my ex making excuses for Trump. And nighttime, when the shows are startlingly dull. And the icon of the network vetoed the return of the founding icon of the network because she is consumed by pique. There are some pushbacks. Midas Network, promising. Lincoln Project, some podcasts. But the New York Times and Washington Post are dead, so blinded by the sheer volume of right-wing bullshit that they have been reduced to trying to see which one of them can bend over further backward to pander to Trump. And that's the entirety of the left-wing media. On the right, hundreds of outlets, some of them underwritten by the Russian government. Ultimately, unnecessarily so, because American billionaire after American billionaire spends money to make sure that whether 300,000 people watch Nick Fuentes or 300 do, he's on all the time, with all the motivation in the world to stay on, namely all the money in the world. And the coordination with the Republican Party, with the Republican candidates, 100%. What do you, Joe Rogan, need from us? Trump, he'll be there. Somebody else, she'll be there. They'll be there. Just make sure it's at least an hour long, and then you talk about it for another 10 days. Over here, I have some podcasts. This one, since we started doubling up on YouTube between the views and then the verified downloads of the podcast last year through yesterday, the audience is 53,701,934. Honestly, I don't know if that's a lot or a little. I don't know how many other liberal podcasters have more in that kind of time span. I don't know the names of most of the liberal podcasters. I don't know the name of one liberal streamer. And the next contact I get from the Democratic Party or anybody in it will be the first. If George Soros is behind all this, he's not very good at it. The next contact I get from somebody saying, could we put together a 24/7 streaming operation and use your podcast or show your podcast, at least for a while? Or, you know, since you did create MSNBC, maybe you have ideas on how we could do something as the world of media implodes and there are 1,000 outlets and like 9 of them are liberal? Next time I hear that, that'll be the first too. I'm not trying to sell this podcast. Certainly not to you. You're already listening to it. I don't need the money, and I'd like to retire, actually. That was the plan, Kamala. The plan was I got to retire last week. But we aren't just losing the media wars. We're not even fighting back. The Harris campaign spent like $1 billion on commercials on television and online, and they spent just as much as every other Democratic campaign and Democratic leader has on the nonstop slurm spigot of streaming propaganda. Nothing. And you know what happens then? If you have no new media infrastructure, grassroots or AstroTurf or Russian-sponsored or whatever, not only can't you sell your candidate, you not only can't lie if you decide you have to or want to, but you can't tell the online audience the truth about the fascists. They hear one thing everywhere and assume that's the marketplace of ideas. We're not only not even in the marketplace of ideas, we're not only not set up at the marketplace of ideas, we don't even know where the marketplace of ideas is. You go down here, make 17 lefts, and then you're there. And you know what happens then? the New Republic, Greg Sargent got a look at the real internal Harris research. Quote, it proved disturbingly difficult to persuade undecided voters that Trump had been a bad president. Internal testing in all the battleground states over the course of many months yielded a result that unnerved the campaign. According to a senior Harris campaign operative who has seen the data, it was this. Undecided voters didn't believe that some of the highest profile things that happened during Trump's presidency, even if they saw these things negatively, were his fault. Quote, people gave him a total pass because of COVID, the operative says. There was frustration inside the campaign that voters turned the massive job losses into a non-issue, added a second Democratic operative privy to internal data, unquote. Same on convincing them about Social Security cuts to come, or even that he made Social Security cuts last time. Same on abortion. On abortion, they gave him a pass on appointing the Supreme Court justices who perjured themselves and then gutted Roe v. Wade. Quoting again from Greg Sargent and the internal Harris polling, that's because they didn't believe Trump himself was sincerely anti-choice. These voters thought he's ambivalent about abortion because many didn't think he had core principles. So he won because he didn't have any principles. As an aside, we have now entered the era of post-principles, post-character, post-belief, post-policy presidential campaigns. 25 years ago, we all mocked the idea that George Bush had won because, as an afterthought, he was the one you would prefer to have a beer with. Today, it's the only thing in the campaign. It's only about having the metaphorical beer. You can see it in retrospect, even with Obama. McCain was a grumpy old man. Romney was a grumpy younger man with a too-slick-by-half voice. Trump? They liked Trump from TV. They got sick of him in 2020. Friends of theirs had died. But they missed his entertainment value and they forgot about their dead friends. The end. And prices were higher. If I had to pick one Democrat today as the 2028 nominee and I couldn't convince Taylor Swift or Mrs. Obama, I'd pick John Fetterman. I think John Fetterman might be crazy. I probably agree with John Fetterman on about 30% of issues, but he's a great character. Perfect for the unrealistic world the election-deciding part of America now lives in, and the left is not in that world at all. Oh, yeah, and if you don't have a 24/7, 365 media infrastructure, when the economy is robust and inflation is rolling back and the recovery is the best in the world, you have no way to convince anybody that that's true and that the prices at the gas pump and at the Wawa and the Sheetz are happening to rise and stay risen because the corporations and billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Trump, they're the ones who raised the prices and stole the money out of your household budgets. They are the guilty parties. We should be screaming that, except there's nobody here to scream. There's nobody to tell these people that the Republicans will tell them anything. If you don't have the infrastructure, you can't drill it into their heads that Trump is insane, that an outright abortion ban is coming, that he almost killed them in 2020, and now he's going to try to do it again. If you don't have the media infrastructure and the political world has devolved into media wars, you're going to lose. All right. We lost. That's right. I forgot. By the way, I am not pushing this podcast as the model for everything the left needs to do to save the country. If that's still on the table, I'm going to be 66 in 2 months, God help me. A week after the inauguration, if I survive the week after the inauguration. I am too old to run this crap. I might be able to help start it, though. Then retire to the old Sports Center home in Bristol, Connecticut. Yeah, ha, ha, ha. Thank you very much, Nancy Faust. I mean, in 2004 and 2005, Liz Winstead and Al Franken and a bunch of very talented liberals launched an all-liberal radio network in hopes of countering Limbaugh and Savage and Hannity and O'Reilly, and they got like 6 listeners. And Maddow was one of the hosts, and she had so not succeeded that when Tucker Carlson's MSNBC show began to die, they had to, for budget reasons, fire one of the 2 liberal foils they used to have on to counter Tucker Carlson. So they kept Max Kellerman and fired Rachel Maddow. Meanwhile, at MSNBC, NBC's attempt to go further to the right than Fox had failed so badly that they had fired everybody and were preparing to run the little nightly news show they had called Countdown, and then at 9 p.m. every night turn the rest of the night and much of the day and the whole weekend over to prison documentaries. Basically, 10 to 15 hours a day of prison documentaries. Nobody at NBC News headquarters even bothered to watch MSNBC anymore. So when I started to go anti-war and anti-phony terrorism warnings and anti-Bush, by the time management even noticed, we were a hit. And instead of throwing me in the trunk of a car, they handed me an armored car full of cash. And still I was mocked on the left as doing this for ratings, as trying to be the left's Bill O'Reilly. And I was mocked for trying to launch other shows hosted by liberals on MSNBC rather than tenaciously and viciously holding on to my liberal TV monopoly. To this day, liberal media is mocked. It is territorial, it is spiteful, it is amateurish, it is tiny, and it is unplanned. And when it was unplanned in 2005, and MSNBC sprung out of it organically, that was a good thing. Surprise! Right now, it's a fatal thing. We don't have a billionaire supporting anything. We don't have a Joe Rogan. We don't even have a Keith Olbermann, a young Keith Olbermann. And you know the joke. 1, who's this Keith Olbermann guy? 2, get me Keith Olbermann. 3, get me a Keith Olbermann. 4, how about a young Keith Olbermann? 5, whatever happened to Keith Olbermann? 6, Keith Huberman? Okay, a lot of self-indulgence today. On the other hand, it may be unseemly, but it ain't untrue. I will sum this up. If Democrats think they can win with their media ecosystem, phone banks, if they think they can win the midterms in 2026 or the presidency in 2028 this way, if there is an election, if they think we can win, we are crazy. Oh, and by the way, the fascist media ecosystem I described earlier, with its thousands of tentacles, has already begun to support the cancellation of the 2028 election. Yeah. It began last year. They started to do this last year. Well, the 22nd Amendment only applies to 2 consecutive terms, a third term. If we are not ready to shoot back and win the streaming wars within a year's time, we should instead devote our energies to fleeing. Also of interest here, the good news is the Trump Reich's primary and most effective opponent at the moment is the Trump Reich. We have finally found out what is behind the push to deport immigrants. It's not to deport them. It's to detain them, because it turns out the profits are in detaining them. And guess which industry is all ready to make those profits? And from no less an ass-kissing source than Politico, Trump world has devolved into a, quote, dick fight for dominance between Chris LaCivita and Corey Lewandowski. Now, see, here's where Sideshow Bobby Kennedy could reassert himself, right? That's next. This is Countdown.
This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann.
This is the Countdown Podcast, and these are the places where there are postscripts to the news. Some headlines, some updates, some snark, some predictions. Mar-a-Lago, this is from Politico on Thursday, and I read it altering only a couple of words because as salty as I am, I really do believe I have an F-bomb quota, and this would put me way over it for like the whole year. And next. And I read it in full because this is what winning looks like in the MAGA hellscape of our new insect overlords. Quote, Las Vegas revenge. Backstage at Donald Trump's watch party Tuesday night before the now president-elect took the stage, the notoriously pugnacious Corey Lewandowski did something a bit unusual. He extended an olive branch to a foe. After being brought into the campaign fold in late summer, Lewandowski was sidelined by Trump for trying to elbow his way to the top and causing drama with the team. The man who had been Trump's first campaign manager in the 2016 cycle had been locked in what a GOP official once described to us as a, quote, dick fight for dominance with Chris LaCivita, who was running the 2024 show with Susie Wiles. Before he left this year's campaign, Trump officials believe Lewandowski planted a slew of negative stories about LaCivita, including one in the Daily Beast that suggested he personally banked millions off Trump campaign entities over 2 years. When Trump saw the story, he reportedly flipped out and confronted LaCivita, who pulled up bank statements and FEC reports to argue the story was wrong, he wasn't swindling Trump, and that the money sent to his businesses overwhelmingly went to pay for campaign ads. By Tuesday, as Trump basked in the limelight of his election, Lewandowski apparently saw the writing on the wall and realized that he needed to make peace with a man who had won back Trump's trust and shepherded him to victory. He extended a hand to LaCivita and offered a congratulations. Instead of shaking his hand, LaCivita pointed to him square in the chest and tore into him, according to people familiar with the exchange. F you. F you and F you. You have effed with the wrong person. I'm going to effing destroy you. LaCivita and the RNC now appear to be teaming up to do just that. Yesterday, a lawyer working on their behalf sent a legal threat to the Daily Beast, demanding the story be corrected and or retracted. In fact, they later did change the story to say the money went to the companies, not to him personally. Notably, the RNC hired Mark Garagos, a hard-hitting criminal defense lawyer whose roster of former clients includes Michael Jackson. That's the right one to have. In the letter, Garagos asserts the story is categorically false, blah, blah, blah. But LaCivita and the RNC aren't stopping there. We're told that in the days ahead, they plan to send letters to others involved in the story. And since the letter clearly points to Lewandowski for providing the publication with unreliable information in a blatant act against Mr. LaCivita and the RNC, we can guess what's going to be showing up in Lewandowski's mailbox soon. Meanwhile, the Daily Beast is reporting that Lewandowski personally says he won't be joining the administration. No shocker there. The campaign is over. We're focused on delivering the promises. Blah, 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 blah. LaCivita declined to comment, but around the time we reached out about this tip, he tweeted a picture of HBO's famous mob boss Tony Soprano flipping the bird. If you know why I'm posting this, then, well, you know, LaCivita wrote. So, as we continue to watch in horror at the Democrats' post-mortem, hey, there's too much post and not enough mortem circular firing squad, let's just remember this sweet little image of LaCivita planning to destroy Lewandowski. And remember that this is why all the fascists are in politics, just for that kind of bloodlust. Let's just remember that that is how they behave after they have won. Mr. LaCivita? Mr. Lewandowski, more of this, please. We are the Democrats. We are great at circular firing squads, but we bow to you with amazed respect that you can do it in literally the moments after a presidential election victory. If you need any further advice on circular firing squad logistics, just ask. We can't do much to destroy you for 2 years at least, but hot damn, you seem ready and willing to destroy yourselves. And this is the subject that I can get all bipartisan about. Wall Street. The day after Trump's election, stock in a company called Geo Group, Inc. rose 41%. Stock in its rival Core Civic Inc. went up 29%. And because those numbers did what they did, we now know what the old man's Trump purge is actually all about. All of the immigration issues and all of the deportation issues and all of the roundups and all of the camps and all the rest of the hate. What do Geo Group and Core Civic do? They build and run private prisons. Geo Group already has contracts with immigration, ICE, to the tune of $1 billion. From the editor-in-chief of the Ohio Capital Journal, David DeWitt, quote, to deport 20 million people, a number Trump has claimed, they need to build massive camps, deportation detention camps, where people are concentrated to handle such massive numbers. Brokers are speculating a nice windfall for a private prison giant on the backs of millions of families being put in camps, unquote. Apart from the obvious, the other thing that disturbs me about this is I made a joke about this last week about how if you order 40,000 prefab concentration camps from Jeff Bezos' Amazon, it'll be free delivery. Never dawned on me. Even after all this, it never dawned on me. And that sure, there's hatred and racism and cruelty, but basically Trump is in the immigration and deportation thing because it's another source of income. Brussels, NATO headquarters. While the understandably upset members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization wonder what's next for, not being overrun by a Russian war against Europe while Trump is playing with his toes, there is the reverse angle on this. If you are Canada or England or France or Germany or any other country with a halfway decent intelligence operation, after Trump's clear indebtedness to Putin became evident again, and the Republican Party's subsumation by Russia, and the evidence already out in public about all the classified documents he read aloud to passersby and book publishers and stole last time, why would you ever share intelligence with the United States of America again? Better yet, how could you now resist not sharing with Trump the wrong intel, fake intelligence, like documents showing that Putin is going to invade Uranus or something, just to see how long it would be before it surfaced somewhere else? Dateline Silicon Valley. Now comes the revenge of the tech bros. Mark Andreessen, who invented something with computers. Who knows? They'll never remember him. Who invented the flash drive? You have any idea? Who cares? He was a Democrat, then his net worth dropped by $1 million or something due to taxes. Now he's a Trumpist, and he wants nothing less than the prosecution of everybody who doesn't give Elon Musk money. I have no doubt, he writes, that the orchestrated advertiser boycotts and censorship operations of the last decade have been criminal conspiracies. They all need to end right now. Everyone involved in the long-standing illegal joint government university company censorship apparatus should take care to preserve their files and communications. Sunlight is coming. The orchestrated advertiser boycott against X and popular podcasts must end immediately. Conspiracy and restraint of trade is a prosecutable crime. There it is. Send Musk $3. Or you're going to be in big trouble. Dateline Dallas. The NFL Dallas Cowboys did their Veterans Day salute a day early. They had a perfect built-in honoree. Their first coach, the man who almost single-handedly made them into America's team, before owner Jerry Jones made them into America's laughingstock. Their first coach, Tom Landry, was a World War II bomber pilot who flew 26 missions over occupied Europe, including one where they evaded the German guns but kind of ran out of gas and had to crash land in Belgium. They honored Tom Landry on the Cowboys scoreboard during the game yesterday, complete with a photo of him in his trademark coach's hat. And they misspelled Tom Landry's name. It's spelled Landry. His old team, the Dallas Cowboys, spelled it Laundry. Laundry. Coach Tom Landry. We honor Tom Landry. Talk about whitewashing history. Worst person's next. format for at least this episode. Before we go, there are still more new idiots to talk about. The daily roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's other worst persons in the world. The bronze worse, Eric Adams, mayor of New York City. Gotham. Fun city. Don't blame me, I voted for the garbage commissioner lady. Recent polling has indicated that 70% of New Yorkers now want him to resign because 7%, the number between 6 and 8, 7% believe he has not committed a crime. His approval ratings? He doesn't have any. He has disapproval ratings. He actually is at strong approval by 17% of African-American New Yorkers. Adams has now revealed that he has done exactly what you would do if you faced a city ready to seriously reconsider Andrew Weiner or Andrew Cuomo to replace you. Apologize? Address the residents on TV? No. He has called Trump. Insisted he did not discuss his own criminal case with Trump. Did not say, "Pardon me, President-elect." Did not talk about joining the Republican Party. Can you see where he's going with this, though? The runner-up, Congressman Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, just when you thought Tulsi Gabbard was the biggest moron to seek the Democratic nomination for president in 2020, there's this imbecile. From the New York Times, circular firing squad time. Seth happily brought nail clippers. Representative Seth Moulton of Massachusetts suggested the party should shift its approach to transgender issues. Quote, Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face, Mr. Moulton said. I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male and formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. Moulton, who is an imbecile, promptly saw his press spokesman and top advisor resign in protest. He has since doubled down on his remarks and says he's confused because the Massachusetts State Democratic chairperson will not return his calls. Including his call insisting that the way forward for the Democratic Party after the presidential loss and the House loss and the Senate loss is to become transphobic. That's the wave of the future. That's the slogan. Democrats, we now hate transgendered people. And he wants to do this because of the 0.00000000000000001% chance that his little gals get run over during a sporting event by one of the, half dozen transgender athletes in Massachusetts scholastic sports? You know what's likelier? That Seth Moulton's daughters will be run over on a playing field by Seth Moulton because he's so totally lost, he runs out onto the playing field. You are supposed to be afraid to say something like that, Congressman. It's hateful, barbarous, likely to get somebody hurt, indicates that you're a bigot and a moron, and since you're too stupid to understand any of that, consider it in these terms. It will end your political career. But our winner, the worst, Emerald Robinson. Emerald Robinson used to be a correspondent for One American News. Consider that job for a moment. Is she crazy? Yeah, very much so. Hire her immediately. Did you see her last report? I did. Give her a raise. She's even crazier than we thought. Then they realized she was making stuff up, and she was too crazy even for them. So One American News fired her, and she was hired by Newsmax for 2 years. And then they realized she was making stuff up, and she was too crazy even for them, and they fired her. And now she's on Mike Lindell's website, Frank, which they call Frank because chairman of the board TV was taken. Trump's Secretary of the Department of Pillows and Homeland Bedding, Mike Lindell, is too nuts to notice anything, so Emerald Robinson is still on there, apparently, doing stuff like what she wrote about the Senate race in Arizona. It's all you need to know about this in advance. It's the Senate race. Somebody called a suburban black man, in Moscow. The vote count in the Arizona Senate race between Kari Lake, R, and Ruben Gallego, D, hasn't moved in hours, and we're supposed to think this is all totally normal. Meanwhile, Trump flipped Arizona with ease. Make it make sense. And she retweeted this and said, it's called cheating. Now, you ready for the operative part? Democrats are trying to flip the House by cheating. It's the Senate race, Dimbulb. Senate. Gallego defeating Lake was for the Senate. Has nothing to do with flipping the House. The House and the Senate are two different things. Yeah, I know. Surprised me too when I was 6. It's nothing to do with flipping the House or not flipping the House or flipping the pancakes. Also, Emerald, why would the Democrats cheat to steal the Arizona Senate vote but not the Arizona Electoral College vote, you idiot? There is a reason Emerald Robinson's Wikipedia profile begins, Emerald Robinson is an American broadcaster and conspiracy theorist, unquote. Like she has a frickin' degree in it. I majored in conspiracy theory. Actually, we don't know where she majored or what she majored in because her bio has no date of birth or personal data like whether she's originally from this planet or what her names used to be. It mentions that she used to be an actress. IMDb is far more informative. It tells us she was Ruthie in You, Me, and $5. I believe Laurence Olivier was in that. But her breakout role was in the 2016 hit Miracles from Heaven, where she played Woman with Big Hair. Emerald, that was part of the Woman with Big Hair trilogy. Woman with Big Hair, Woman with Bigger Hair, and Woman whose hair was so big it crushed her cervical vertebrae, Robinson, today's worst person in the world! Don't tell anybody, but like half this episode was music. Done all the damage I can do here, or let the music do the damage for me. Thank you for listening. Follow me for the podcast promo videos on Blue Sky, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter X, Instagram, Threads, and Threadface. But no longer on TikTok. They banned me from TikTok for sharing a satirical anti-Trump meme. There'll be a camp for that soon enough. Brian Ray and John Philip Chanel, the musical directors of Countdown, arranged, produced, and performed most of our music. Mr. Chanel handled orchestration and keyboards. Mr. Ray was on the guitars, bass, and drums. It was produced by TKO Brothers. Our satirical and pithy musical comments are by the best baseball stadium organist ever, Nancy Faust. And yes, that little joke at the beginning, I staged that entirely. Nancy's not mad at me. That I know of. Sports music is the Olbermann theme from ESPN2, which was written by Mitch Warren Davis, courtesy of ESPN Inc. Other music arranged and performed by the group No Horns Allowed. My announcer today was my ever-faithful friend Larry David. Everything else was pretty much my fault. That's Countdown for today, just 1,532 days until the scheduled end of the term of lame duck President Trump. The next scheduled countdown is Thursday. Still playing this scheduling by ear. I may do shorter 10-minute editions as the news warrants, if that works for you. And then 2 main ones during the week. Let's see. As always, bulletins as the news warrants. Till the next one, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and good luck.